You know those golden arches, right? I mean, they're everywhere. They are this global symbol of fast food, and for a lot of us, it's a taste of something familiar. But behind that brand, oh man, there is a wild story. It's a story of some serious innovation, ruthless ambition, and a secret business model that, you won't believe this, has almost nothing to do with hamburgers. So let's really dig into the insane history of McDonald's.
So let me just ask you this right off the bat. Is McDonald's a fast food company or is it a real estate empire? It sounds like a simple question, I know, but the answer? Well, it completely changes how you see one of the biggest corporations on the entire planet. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why the burgers were never really the point. Okay, so before the global empire, before the billions and billions served, it all started with two brothers from New Hampshire. They had a simple but absolutely revolutionary idea. Their names were Richard and Maurice McDonald, and honestly, they are the true godfathers of everything we now call fast food. So these guys, they originally went out to California to chase Hollywood dreams, working as crew on movie sets. They even tried running a movie theater, but that flopped. So they pivoted to what was huge at the time, drive-in restaurants. And their barbecue joint was a massive success. I mean, they were making enough money to buy a mansion. But here's the thing. They hated it. The business was messy, it was stressful, and it was attracting the wrong kind of crowd. So in 1948, they did something that sounds completely insane. They closed their successful business down to start all over from scratch. And here it is. This is the light bulb moment that changed everything. The brothers sat down and really looked at their sales, and they discovered something incredible. A whopping 80% of all their money came from just one thing: hamburgers. Everything else on their big 25-item menu, the car hops running around, the dishwashers, it was all just noise getting in the way of what people actually wanted. So they re-engineered their entire business around that one single insight. They just slashed the menu down to the absolute essentials. They designed their kitchen like a factory assembly line, Henry Ford style, where every single employee had one simple, repeatable job. No more plates, no more silverware, just paper and bags. And the results? They could get a family a hot meal in less than 30 seconds. They called it the Speedy Service System, and it was nothing short of a revolution. And this right here, this tells you everything you need to know about the brothers' mindset. They weren't trying to build an empire, they were craftsmen. They had perfected their system. Their one restaurant was this clean, efficient, money-making machine, and that was enough for them. They were so proud of what they'd built, they'd literally give tours of their kitchen to anybody who asked, including the guys who would go on to start Taco Bell and Burger King. But a system that good doesn't stay a secret for long. And the brothers' quiet little success story was about to get the attention of a man with a very different kind of ambition. Let's talk about Ray Kroc. He was a 52-year-old, super persistent, and kind of desperate milkshake machine salesman. So things weren't going great for Ray Kroc. His multi-mixer business was kind of dying. But then an order comes in that just makes absolutely no sense. One little restaurant out in the middle of nowhere, California, ordered 8 of his machines. To put that in perspective, the biggest soda shops in Chicago maybe bought 1. What in the world was going on out there? He literally got in his car and drove across the country because he had to see it for himself. So when Kroc shows up and sees this Speedy Service System in action, he sees these long lines of happy families getting food in just seconds. A vision just explodes in his mind. But that vision was the complete opposite of what the McDonald brothers ever wanted. They wanted to perfect one single location. Kroc saw golden arches on every street corner in America. This right here, this clash of visions, would define the entire future of the company. Now, Kroc eventually did convince the brothers to let him become their franchising agent, but that first deal he struck was a total financial disaster for him. It forced him to make a pivot, a change in strategy that would unlock the company's real secret to success and turn it into the powerhouse that it is today. So here was the big problem. Kroc's contract gave him a tiny, tiny slice of the pie, just 1.4% of a franchisee's sales. After he paid the brothers their cut, he was left with just 0.5%. I mean, the restaurant owners were getting rich, and Ray Kroc's company was bleeding money. He was basically on the verge of bankruptcy, trying to build an empire on fumes. The solution came from this financial genius named Harry Sonborn, and his idea was so brilliant because it was so simple. He basically told Kroc, "You're not in the hamburger business. You're in the real estate business." So they created a totally new company that would go out, buy the land for every new McDonald's, and then lease that land back to the person running the restaurant at a pretty hefty markup. This one move was the ultimate game changer. It created this huge new river of cash coming in from rent, which finally freed Kroc from that restrictive deal with the brothers. But even more importantly, it gave him ultimate control. See, now, if a franchisee started cutting corners or wasn't keeping the place clean, Kroc could just threaten to end their lease and take over the store. Suddenly, the business wasn't just about burgers anymore. It was about building a massive, ever-growing portfolio of some of the most valuable real estate in the world. So now that he was armed with all this new financial power, Kroc was finally ready to make his big move. He was just tired of the McDonald brothers holding him back with their cautious approach. He wanted them out. He wanted the name all to himself. And what happened next is one of the most controversial stories in the history of business. So Kroc calls up the brothers and basically tells them to name their price. They come back with $2.7 million. That's $1 million for each of them after taxes. In today's money, you're talking about around $28 million. Kroc didn't have it, but he was so obsessed with getting this deal done that he took on a ton of debt to make it happen. Okay, and this is where the story gets really murky. The official contract, the one on paper, was for a clean $2.7 million buyout. But Richard McDonald, one of the brothers, claimed for the rest of his life that there was also a verbal handshake deal for them to get 0.5% of all future revenue, forever. Kroc apparently said it couldn't be in writing for tax reasons, but he gave them his word. You know, that royalty today would be worth billions of dollars. The brothers never saw a single dime of it. This quote, it says it all. As part of the deal, the brothers got to keep their original restaurant, but they weren't allowed to call it McDonald's anymore, so they renamed it the Big M. Ray Kroc's very first move after the buyout was to open a brand new McDonald's literally right across the street. His only goal was to drive the original founders of his company out of business. And within a few years, he did. So with the brothers gone and Ray Kroc in total control, McDonald's just exploded. It became a global phenomenon. But when you get that big, well, you start having enormous problems. And the company became this magnet for controversy and scandal. Two scandals in particular just rocked the company to its core. For over a decade, the really popular Monopoly game was completely rigged. A security chief was funneling $24 million in winning pieces to his friends and family. And then, in 2004, the documentary Super Size Me came out, showing the absolutely shocking health effects of eating nothing but McDonald's for a month. That film was a public relations nightmare, and you could argue the brand's reputation never fully recovered. And this all leads to the company's much wider and much more complicated legacy. Now look, you can't draw a straight line and say one caused the other, but the parallel trends here are pretty striking. Back in the 1960s, right as McDonald's was starting to expand across the country, the obesity rate in America was about 13%. Today, with over 40,000 McDonald's worldwide, that number has more than tripled. The rise of fast food culture, which was pioneered and perfected by McDonald's, is just completely tied up with this public health crisis. So we're left with this huge, defining question. Who really founded McDonald's? Was it the brilliant brothers who invented and perfected the system but didn't have that ambition for massive scale? Or was it the relentless salesman who saw the global potential but maybe built his entire empire on a broken handshake and a betrayal? The answer, as it turns out, really just depends on how you define the word founder.